Hi, thanks a million again for clicking the link. So I'm just going to talk about dry needling. So patients who come to me, they have a lot of questions, or people before they come to me, they have questions about what is dry needling. And what I've done is I've written down the most frequent questions I get asked just to find out what dry needling is. If the best way I suppose to find out what dry needling is for you is to probably have a tester session. At my clinic we offer 5 €10 tester sessions. So this is, you come in, we assess you, see if dry needling might be appropriate, what's most appropriate, tell you what's going on. We'll do dry needling on you, and it only costs €10, because that's probably the best way to find out. We only offer 5 of those though a month, just because we're quite busy in the clinic, so we don't have time. So if that interests you, email oweneverard@gmail.com or text 085 22 07 889, and all that information should be literally just underneath this video. Okay, so if I talk about then the questions I get asked. So the first one is, what is dry needling? What does dry needling actually do? So dry needling involves putting a sterile acupuncture needle, so they're the exact same needles as people use in acupuncture, into a muscle in order to hit a trigger point, and I'll come back to explain what that is, and it helps release that tight muscle. So in essence, that's what it is. It's you have a acupuncture needle, it goes into the muscle, and you're trying to hit what we call trigger points in the muscle, and I'm going to come back to what that is in a minute. Okay, what does dry needling work for? So what's it most appropriate for? Well, the first thing is people who experience, say, tightness in their muscles. So if you have, say, a hamstring strain, if you have quad tightness, if your shoulders get tight, if your neck gets tight, or your low back muscles get actually tight, dry needling is a great way to try to release that tightness. Second thing then, it also works if a muscle is pulling on a certain joint. So if you think of a knee joint or a hip joint, what can happen is sometimes the muscle can pull on the joints and it moves it out of the center of the joint, and then that causes the joint to be kind of grinding and causes pain. So if the joint pain is caused by, say, muscles pulling it out of position when you move, dry needling can be effective. If the pain is caused by actual things going on in the joint, it mightn't be as effective. And then lastly, it can help with what we call referred pain. Referred pain is where pain in a muscle causes pain somewhere else. So a really good example of this is if someone has a heart attack, you'll always hear people complain of, like, say, pain down their left arm. What's happening there is the muscle went into spasm, the heart muscle went into spasm, and that can cause referred pain down the arm. So there's actually nothing wrong with their arm, it's just there's another muscle in spasm. That can happen, say, at the knee and at the hip in particular, where certain muscles go into spasm and it can cause pain across. So that's generally who it's going to work for. So I mentioned trigger points in the first question. So the second thing is, what is a trigger point? Well, essentially, and I've used a little band here, so it's all high tech. Essentially, a trigger point is like a knot in a strand of a muscle. So if you can imagine loads of these elastic bands, that's what makes up a muscle. It kind of contracts and then it relaxes off, contracts and relaxes off. And what happens is, with trigger points, it can cause tightness and stiffness because it can tighten up like a knot in that muscle. So imagine if the muscle is this length, if we have knots in the middle, it's going to stretch the other parts. That's going to make that tissue go into spasm. It's going to make it more stiff. It's not going to be as flexible as, say, if it was a normal length and was able to move. So a trigger point is, say, a knot in the muscle that causes things to tighten up. Okay, so the next question is, why use dry needling to fix trigger points? Well, if we take our muscle, what can happen is, if you've tried different techniques like hands-on physio or different techniques and they haven't been effective, dry needling can be very effective for these trigger points. And the reason is this, that what happens is, for a muscle, there's 2 lines. So you have one line here and one line here, and it grabs up and it pulls it in closer, and then it has to relax off and it gets moved back. With trigger points, what happens is the muscle comes up and for some reason it goes into spasm and it stays contracting, so it doesn't let go. And what happens then is it stays and it gets kind of stuck in that position. Okay, so that's what the trigger point is, that's what that knot is. It's those 2 layers of the muscle tied together. what happens then is, imagine if you were holding a sponge. If I held a sponge really tight in my hand, if I even put that into water, it wouldn't take any new water into that sponge. Why? Because I'm holding it very tight. That's exactly what's happening. So that muscle is held tight, and even though there's blood and nutrients and energy around the muscle, it can't get in because the trigger point is holding it here. So it causes spasm, and that can cause further trigger points and even more pain. So what the needle does is, if you can imagine, and this is an example of a needle there, we place that's the packaging. So we place the needle in where the muscle is in spasm, and that allows enough blood and energy and nutrients to get into there, and it causes a little flick, and that is basically the two strands of the muscle uncoupling, and that allows this to get rid of this knot. And then we have to do a couple of other things to help stretch out that muscle again. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. It's a lot of theory. You don't need to know the theory, but some people ask me, and I think they wish they hadn't after I have given them the answer. Okay, perfect. Is it painful? It's difficult to say. I personally find it painful. It's a weird sensation when the needle is in, and especially if you hit that trigger point, it makes a twitching. Why I say it's difficult is some people have absolutely no problems with dry needling. They don't find it bad at all, and actually they love it because it's quite effective. Other people find it quite a little pinch when it goes in, and the sensation can be a little bit weird, especially at the start. And as I said, that tester session is probably a good idea because it allows you to see if you think it's going to be something that is appropriate for you. Let's move on to there's only a couple more questions you'd be happy to know. Okay, so is it effective? Yes, for most people with muscular issues or joint pain, dry needling can be very effective. So I mentioned there before that I don't really I find it slightly painful, but if I have, say, a stiffness or say pain in an area like say for my Achilles or a quad or whatever, I'll actually use these needles on myself. So I don't like it, but it's so effective that I just I just make sure I do it, and it keeps me injury free and running and doing the things I want to do. I had a patient there who didn't have any problems with needles, just God, those darts he threw into my back really sorted it out. So it seems to be very effective. Okay, and then people ask, is there many different types of dry needling methods? They might have had dry needling done with someone else and they're just wondering, is there different methods? There are. I use 3 different types of methods. Most people just use one type of method, which I think might limit the effectiveness. It just depends on what's going on in that muscle and what's going on with your specific injury. I'm not going to talk about those 3 methods because I spent a lot of money and a lot of time developing them, so I don't want to just give them out on a free video. Okay, but if you come or you chat to me, I can tell you about the different ways we work. Okay, that was the last main question. So what should I do now? Okay, so there's 3 main things you can do. First, I have a quiz on dry needling that lets you just answer these questions and see first, is dry needling safe? And then secondly, is it going to be effective for you? It takes about a minute, and I'll give you more information. These are just some of the frequently asked questions. Other questions that I can answer after that is, what's the difference between acupuncture and dry needling? What conditions can you not do dry needling with? So if you answer that quiz, and I'll email you out that information. Then the second thing you can do is you can either email oweneverard@gmail.com or text 085 2207 889, and again that information is just underneath this video, and you can just ask for that tester €10 session. And again, that's just to give you an example of actually we'll use the needles, try release some of these trigger points, and then you can go away and see, is that something that I think is effective, or no, it wasn't that effective. Or finally, you can book an appointment with me using those same 2 things, and we'll use dry needling plus other techniques that we have, hands-on techniques, realigning the joints to make sure that we try and fix your problem. Okay, so that's everything. And as I said, either take the quiz or get on to me if you have any questions. Thanks very much.